Do you know where the Foster spoons are? I don't remember what they look like. I can get out the book. They were made from, after the Revolutionary War, some folks took silver, belt buckles, hat buckles, shoe buckles into Philadelphia and made what we call the Foster spoons. They made silverware. It's in my book.
Okay. Why were they called Foster, do you know?
Because this goes back to the Samuel Spott's farm. Samuel Spott's first wife was, what's her name? And we're from the second wife of Mary Jane
That's
Baker.
right. Okay, because I remember now. I remember it's coming back a little
I
bit.
forget exactly.
Right.
I thought it would be nice. I know that's going to take too much time to find them.
Oh, don't worry about that.
Oh,
Unless you're in a hurry. I mean.
Janine, up there, that's a sugar bowl. I just thought that's a sugar bowl. In back. Thank you. That was Mary Catherine Tressler's sugar bowl.
So when you were a kid and you were living on South Hanover Street, where did you go to school?
Lamberton building.
You went to Lamberton.
She walked to school.
Was that elementary school and junior high school all the way up through high school?
Junior high.
Junior
was
high.
at the high school.
So you had to walk about maybe 8-10 blocks?
Yeah, it was far.
It was far. Did you walk by yourself or did you walk with other
Oh.
kids?
Couple friends.
Yeah, whoever lived down in that area.
Yeah.
And so that would have been in the 1940s?
Mom was born 1926, graduated.
High school in 1944.
44, okay. So it would have been during the Depression that you were in school and walked to school.
Well, it was a hard times.
Was it?
And we didn't have it as hard as a lot of people.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
But my father had a Dodge Plymouth dealership.
He did?
Not here.
Oh, okay.
Her mother, your parents lived in Germantown, and what was the one before?
Oh,
You know.
Sellersville.
No, that's
No,
where
that was
Dr. Flory
after.
was. Here, I have it here.
So Germantown, that's in
That was
Philadelphia.
the second place, yeah.
Okay.
She
Where
moved.
did you say?
What's
So when you lived in Carlisle, was that in the late 30s?
She was 6 years old when she moved here. Her mother came
Oh,
home to
moved.
give birth.
Oh.
She had lost another child beforehand at about a year old
Okay.
to spinal meningitis.
Before you were
And
born.
so she was nervous. Yeah, it was. She was actually pregnant with mother when that happened.
Oh my gosh.
That baby died in April, and mother was born in December.
So
So she came home for safekeeping
she came home to be with her family.
to give birth to mother,
Okay.
and went home. She and her husband then went back home to.
Germantown?
It was before there.
Okay.
Quakertown.
That's the one.
Quakertown.
Thank
right.
you.
So
And she
so
remembers
did you,
Quakertown.
was
I remember.
Yeah, his
Quakertown.
dealerships were up that
okay.
way.
Yeah.
I
And so
remember Quakertown.
then did you come back to Carlisle after that?
Then in the Depression, your father lost everything,
Okay.
and you came home
He
to your
lost
grandmother's
everything
house.
he had, and he lost everything he had invested for mother.
Not
So
Yeah.
she lost everything, and
Right.
he lost
Because
everything.
we're going public.
Right, right. And that was not uncommon. I mean,
No.
during that
It was
era.
not uncommon. That was a disaster.
Right,
It
'cause
hit many, many people.
right. And my mom talked about things like hoarding bobby pins.
About what?
Mm-hmm.
Bobby pins. Bobby pins were precious
I can't find those.
because because they would put their hair up
Yes, I did too, but
Yeah.
I didn't have to.
You didn't have to hoard them. Can you think of things that
Do you
changed for you when you were a young girl during the Depression? I mean, did you ever have a sense that life was very difficult for you, or did your parents shield you from what was happening?
Life was not difficult.
Yeah,
It was not
I
difficult,
had
but
horseback riding lessons.
you did, yeah.
And fun.
Yeah, yeah. So you didn't feel deprived, like a lot of people
Neither did my
talk
friends.
about from the Depression.
Neither did my friends
Yeah.
that I know of.
And do you remember World War II and people going off to war?
and she's been remembering about, she does, but tell her about your father.
Did your
And-
dad go to war?
What did your father do during World War II? Was he the night watchman?
Oh, at home. Yeah.
Mhm.
And this was in Carlisle?
Yes.
During the First
we
World.
came, we moved home,
Uh-huh.
and he was the night watchman, wasn't working at that
Right.
particular time. And
Do you
all the
remember-
lights had to be out,
Really?
and after, might have been after 5 o'clock, is what comes to me,
Mm-hmm.
for safety.
All around the town?
Yeah.
Everywhere?
Yeah, and he was the person in charge of seeing that Ridge Street and Highland Avenue
Right.
lights were out.
That's up in your part of town where you lived. Yeah. And so, how long did that go on? Do you remember? I mean, did it seem like a long
I don't
time?
remember
Yeah.
how long it
She
went
has
on.
some fond memories looking out from her house across the street to where now Walmart and all that
Yeah.
business is.
Yeah.
That was the Bedford estate and
that-
farm.
Yeah,
It
well,
was.
that's
And
another that's a different
Different story.
Yeah.
They were very well to do,
Uh-huh.
and I loved looking. It was little diagonally across
Mm-hmm.
the street,
Mhm.
and seeing all the ladies in long dresses.
They'd have parties.
Oh.
Big parties out.
Yeah. Wow, so that was kind of a social hub?
Yes, and what did Grandma do when you?
Well, and it was probably more than social because he had owned Bedford Shoe Company,
Mm-hmm.
so it would be businessly advantageous.
Yeah, I bet.
And what did you call the field?
Oh, what did I call it? Oh, I can't.
The Daisy
wait a minute.
Field.
The Daisy Field.
And your mother would take you
To
and
the Daisy Field.
the other children of the household and neighborhood children too sometimes.
And
To
you
the
would,
Daisy Field and read to them to get them out of Grandma's hair.
And,
Oh.
and sometimes instead of reading to us, she made up stories. She had been an English teacher,
okay.
so she was good at that sort of thing. And she would make up stories with the characters being we children and our friends.
Wow.
And
Wow.
we just loved them. She was a very good storyteller.
Oh my gosh.
And when we told that story to my nieces and nephew,
Mhm.
I said, that parking lot used to be the Daisy Field. I go, wow.
Yeah, yeah. That's amazing. That's lovely. So lovely. So that was your grandma. That was the storyteller. Your
My
grandma.
grandmother, mother's mother,
Did
yes.
were you close to her? Did you?
Oh,
know
yes.
her?
Oh, my, yes. And I'm the only grandchild to remember Grandpa,
Oh, okay.
mother's father, because I was about 6 years old when he died, so I'm the only one. Stephen met him,
Mhm.
but he's 2.5 years younger, so he doesn't really have any memory of it.
Mhm. Mhm.
But I remember two things, principally. I remember I was just little and playing tag, and he had chasing me. That house is wonderful inside. It has the pocket doors and everything, you know, and the living room and the parlor and the dining room and then the kitchen and whatnot. So he was chasing me, and he was just such fun about it.
Yeah.
And so I remember that, and then I remember when he was dying, and it was so serious, and we went up. He was dying in bed, and he
In the house.
Yeah, we went upstairs. He had, I think, stomach cancer or something.
I
And
know
then,
you remember that.
oh my,
Yeah.
yes, and the door was shut, and we had to get very serious before we went in.
Yeah, yeah.
And then I remember his funeral.
And so he passed away in the house.
I guess.
Were you, Carolyn, were you born in that house or were you born in the hospital?
No, we didn't live in Carlisle. Yes, we did.
Well, your
you
mother
came back.
came home.
I was.
Your mother came home to have you in
Right.
Carlisle, but
That's
I
right.
don't know the answer to that either.
No?
I forget.
Okay.
I don't think I was born in that house.
You might have been born in that hospital, in the Todd Hospital.
Was that what it was?
I think it was called the Todd Hospital then in 1926, 1927, yeah. Mhm. Well, so then after your dad passed away, did you all live in that house with your mother?
Yeah.
You did, yeah. For how long? Did you,
Well, your whole rest of your childhood, from age 6 to college.
and you went to college, you went away to college, right?
Yes. And when you say went away, it seemed like it was Shippensburg State
Right,
Teachers College.
sure.
Not very far.
No,
Yeah.
from our perspective now, but you always say that at the time, it seemed like you were just going so far away.
And did you live there at the
I
normal
liked it.
school?
Yeah.
Mother graduated from Dickinson.
Did she?
Yeah.
Wow.
So did her sister, who lived together.
Uh-huh.
But I didn't want to go. I wanted to go to
You wanted to go away to school.
Yeah.
And I have never regretted it. I loved
Yes,
it.
you did.
I just loved it.
Hmm.
Everything about it.
Did you have any other siblings at home?
No, not for long.
No?
I had 2 other siblings,
Okay.
a young sister and a brother, both younger than myself.
Hmm.
Um,
Yeah. And is that,
And you had 2 cousins, too.
and Bob Fry is one of them?
Bob Fry's my brother.
And your sister, what happened to her?
She
Oh.
retired to, go ahead.
Peggy. See, where did Peggy go to college?
Well, she started at Dickinson and transferred to
Yeah,
North
What I'm trying to think. I
Dakota,
can't
University
say.
of North Dakota, where Jean's husband
Oh,
was.
where the
right.
other part of the family
Yeah.
was.
That's
Mhm.
right.
Yeah, you talked about them before.
That's right.
Yeah. So that's, and then you went to Hershey and taught.
Well,
Had great fun.
that was my first job.
That was your first job. You taught kindergarten.
And then you got married,
1950.
1950. Okay.
They met at a restaurant
Right.
over ice cream in Hershey,
Yeah.
because Dad and his family had moved from Shippensburg to Lebanon.
Okay.
And they happened to be in Hershey at a restaurant, and there was a mutual friend, unbeknownst to you all, and
Hmm.
so that brought you all together.
So then after you got married, did you set up house in Hershey?
No.
Mm-mm. Where'd you go?
Let's see, after I got married. Where did we first?
You went to Gettysburg.
Gettysburg.
I was
Uh-huh.
going to say Shippensburg.
Gettysburg.
It was Gettysburg. That's right.
And had an
I
apartment
taught
there.
first grade in Gettysburg.
I don't remember that story.
For,
It was just a
like
few, 6
3
months or
months.
something.
And then,
and then my husband was
He
transferred
worked for Musselman.
to,
Oh.
That-
okay.
to Maryland.
Mhm.
And so, of course,
You went with him?
Yeah.
But while you were in Gettysburg, you have a fun story there. What happened at the post office?
You tell it.
What happened at the post office?
You were going into the post office, and coming out was President Eisenhower.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, it's just this close.
Oh my gosh. Did you say
Well,
hello?
we
Or did you say hello?
I doubt it.
You were starstruck.
I think maybe we just greeted each other in a usual way, you know.
Yeah.
Hello.
My grandma from Louisville, Kentucky
What?
my grandmother was from Louisville, Kentucky, and she loved Eisenhower, and she worked on his campaign.
Oh,
Really?
did
Yes, and I have a rhinestone pin that says Ike.
Oh,
on the
how
rhinestone.
neat that is!
And my grandma, all my family are Democrats, forever and still. And, but Grandma Creedy, Mame was her name, broke all the rules and became a Republican. Yeah.
Oh, that's neat.
So you met Eisenhower. I mean, I've heard a lot of stories about the Eisenhowers visiting that country store in Biglerville.
Right, right.
Have you ever been to that store?
Oh my, yes, we used to go every time we were up that way.
Did you?
Yes.
Oh, that's
Anytime.
that's what an amazing place.
It is neat. Is it still
It-
operating?
I don't know. It's still there.
Yeah.
Because I live right up the road from there.
Oh.
You know, on 34. It's that country store is still there, and I went there with my two girlfriends probably 10 years ago, and it was open, and one of the sisters, the old lady, was running it. I forget their name.
Yeah, the other sister I know died. I forget
Yeah.
too, but I'm surprised that
But-
one sister was still there.
Yeah.
Because the last time we were there a year or two ago, there was a helper who said that sister needed help. She couldn't do it alone anymore,
Mhm.
which is not surprising.
Right.
But,
Well, she was there, she was running the store, and she gave us a tour and showed us
Right.
all
Oh,
these
she is so neat.
amazing things. Yeah.
That is a great
That was a
place.
different era, you know,
That was.
when you met Ike. It was a whole different era.
Now-
was he by himself in the post office? Just,
Yeah.
was it after
Just
he was?
seeing him.
He wouldn't have been president then, right?
I think not.
He
I
was-
don't think he was president then.
So was that in the 1950s?
It would have been 1950 exactly, because possibly in 51, but mother was married August 31st, 1950 to my father, so
So when was Eisenhower president?
think-
He
I don't
was-
know. Let's see.
He wouldn't have been president yet then,
I don't
think.
believe. I think.
I
Mother
don't think
said
he would have
was.
been president yet.
I think it was 1948.
Maybe. Because he would have, who, was John Kennedy succeeded Eisenhower, right?
Oh, I can't remember
Yeah,
those sorts of things.
that was in 1960.
I remember when John Kennedy was president.
So
but
I don't think Eisenhower was president until 52. Do you know?
Yes, I still use the good old Eisenhower.
Yeah.
Here, he was not. I was a year old, I guess, when he was president, 1953 to 61.
Yeah, 53. He would have been elected in 52.
So he was not yet president. Oh,
So how did you know who he was? Just because he was a famous general?
I guess.
You must, I mean,
Yeah,
yeah.
he was in the news.
And he was from that area. He
And
would
we have
have,
another neat story.
yeah,
but
what?
It's about Dad, and Eisenhower, because Dad went to Gettysburg College, and Mother will remember all about this. But we used to go visit a couple in Aaronsville named, we called them Granny and Grampy Coons. Cora and Charles Coons, or Charlie, because, and they lived a couple different places, and I don't, where was that fish farm, fish club? Well, he was, at a certain time in his life after he retired as an accountant or whatever, he was warden, or however you say, of that fishing club. and President Eisenhower would go, and we would go visit them. But we never saw Eisenhower there.
No kidding. Wow.
He, I guess, loved trout fishing.
Yeah, just like Jimmy Carter. Jimmy Carter, we always thought he was at Camp David
Yeah.
when he was president,
He
but
was really fishing.
he was really up at the Litord fishing.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, that's such
Yeah.
fun.
Yeah.
Now, let's take Mother back a little further.
Okay, go ahead. Take
And
it.
you have a story of Grandma that Grandma always loved to tell about Jim Thorpe.
Oh,
About Jim
really?
Thorpe, the Jim Thorpe story.
Oh, that one,
Did your grandma meet him?
not Grandma, yeah.
Your mother.
Yeah.
It was your mother, Mom. Your mother.
Really?
I thought it was Aunt Blanche.
No.
She had a friend who taught at the
Indian.
War College.
Indian.
Yeah.
And she was visiting her friend when there was a knock at the door. And it was Jim Thorpe.
And Tawanama.
So, of course, she invited him in. He had come because he wanted to show his teacher all his medals that he had
It was
won.
right after he won the Olympics.
Wow.
And your grandma and her friend sitting there with a cup of tea at the kitchen table.
Oh my gosh, that's really cool.
She loved to tell that story, didn't she?
I bet. So that was after the Olympics.
It was fun.
Right after the Olympics.
Yeah, it would have been. Yeah. She probably knew his wife, Iva Miller, you know, who he married from the Indian school.
Never even got into that.
I would
aspect.
assume she would have. 'Cause
Were they married at the time he was in the Olympics?
they were married after that, and he was at the school until 1913, I think. So, you know, your Aunt Blanche taught Sunday school.
So did her sister, my grandmother.
What was her and your
Miriam.
Miriam. Okay, so your mom is Miriam. And it was Miriam and Blanche. who
And
taught.
Ray.
Okay.
But Ray didn't do that. But their
Okay.
father, George Bill O'Dum, did.
Okay.
He taught
So-
the boys
So
Sunday school.
that was, 10 years before you were even born, right?
I
Did-
don't
did-
know exactly when
yeah,
that was.
That would have been, it would have been 1913,
Okay.
1912. The Olympics were 1912. So
1912, I'd forgotten.
I'm thinking probably 1913 or so would have been when that happened. Yeah. Do you remember anything about the Indian school? Of course, you were not born when the school closed, but the memory of the school was still very much part of this community. And was it your sense that what happened at the Indian school was kind of a heroic effort to rescue Native American Indian children from their conditions? I mean, and is
Well,
that
if
how?
I
Not
may.
just rescue, but
Yeah,
to give them culture.
right. To give them European
It was
culture.
both because Grandma and Aunt Blanche, I mostly remember Grandma saying it, but they both said that how sympathetic they were to the children. They felt badly for the children that they lost their identity in the process of that education.
Mm-hmm.
But they, of course, Grandma was missionary. In fact, she was up in Hazleton doing mission work at one point. So they had that missionary
Yes.
zeal,
Right.
and naturally felt that everyone should
Yeah.
come over to Christianity.
Uh-huh.
And I agree that totally the intent was to benefit the Indian. It's just that in that day and age, school for anybody, let alone a so-called heathen, was rough going. Everybody got the ruler. Didn't matter who you were.
Mm-hmm.
And when I have thought of, I'm sorry.
No, you're fine.
When I think about that more, and I consider these, particularly the British upper classes over here, they were used to an entirely different kind of civilization
Mm-hmm.
and society. So, in a way, I look at that and I think, well, maybe we can, in effect, say no wonder they had some of the response that they had.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, I know enough history now to also recognize, having explored Grandpa, because he was in a Moravian community and with the Bethlehem Bach Choir.
Really?
Yes, he was. He led the. We'll have to get that picture. He led. Go ahead.
He planned all of their tours.
He did.
He sang for the Grandma sang a little while after they were married, but then had children.
Yeah.
But he was second tenor and then also business manager, and he organized their first 2 concerts at the White House under Calvin Coolidge.
Wow.
So we have shared back and forth a lot of memorabilia
Okay.
with the Bach Choir in Lehigh University, where he taught naturalization and English and Christianity and so forth. But my point was, but
So this is
I'm
your
glad to bring
grandpa,
that up. That's
her
Mom's
dad.
father.
Yeah. So that was after the Carlisle years?
That was before.
Oh.
That was before.
Hmm.
He was at the Bach Choir when he and Grandma met. He had his car dealerships when he and Grandma met. That he did.
So he did that on the side?
Yeah.
More or less?
Yeah, it was, yeah, right. And
Was your household very musical growing up? It was. Did you had a piano?
Oh my.
Yeah. And
several.
Did you? And did your mom play as well?
She also played the organ at the Methodist Church.
Oh, really?
She was their organist.
Really? Okay. And did you take piano lessons and play?
Yes, but violin is
Yes.
her instrument.
Even
really?
though my mother was a piano teacher, and we had kids come into our home,
Okay.
I went out to a friend of hers who was a piano teacher, and that's where I learned.
So your mom didn't teach you.
No,
It's kind of like learning to drive from your parents.
Yeah, it's not
I
easy.
suppose. So do you still play the piano for
no.
fun?
You used to.
I played the piano for a little while, and then I took violin lessons,
Okay.
and that became my instrument.
And do you have a violin still?
2 of them.
Do
I
you?
don't play anymore, though.
You
You
don't
don't
take
play.
them out just for fun to
But I
play?
played in high
Yeah.
school.
She
and
was
in
second
college.
violin in
Oh.
college.
Oh, really? Okay. So you played in the orchestra at
What?
You played in the orchestra at Shippensburg.
Yeah,
Yeah. Nice. That's lovely.
high school and in college.
And was there music in the house? I mean, did your parents listen to records a lot when you were growing up? And
Not-
was there
not
music
listen to
playing?
records.
No, they performed. They played.
And you performed. You and Aunt Peggy would have to sing when people came
Really?
to the house. That's the way it was.
That's so sweet. I mean, that's not something I know is done anymore at all.
No.
I mean, rarely.
And Aunt Peggy plays piano. That became her instrument.
Wow. And what about you? Did you?
I play piano.
Do you play? I mean, do
Yeah, I
you?
do. I
Yeah.
enjoy it.
We were a musical family
Mhm.
because both my father and my mother
Right.
were very musical.
Yeah. And so did you listen to records in your house? Did you listen to records growing up
We
too?
did, even at Grandma's house.
Did
there,
you?
There was, before my time, I understand, there was an old-fashioned Victrola. And during my childhood, in the dining room, do you remember where that, the
Radio table was.
yeah, for the phonograph.
Yeah.
And you would sometimes listen to a radio drama, wouldn't you not? Wouldn't you sometimes listen to the radio theater?
Yes, so.
Was that kind of a habit that, you know, you would do on Sunday evenings or, you know, Saturday nights, listen to programs on the radio?
Yes, to some extent. There
Mhm.
were some things that they always tuned into.
Mhm.
And
But-
think of his name. But anyway, there were some.
Yeah.
And Grandma and Aunt Blanche always listened to Dr. Fosdick,
Yeah.
a
I don't know
minister.
that name.
He was a
Oh.
New York minister. I think he was. Yeah, he was a New York City minister. Aunt Blanche went to, well, as you probably know, she was very bright, and she went from Dickinson College to. She went to Columbia University.
She did.
She did.
Did she go to Riverside Church? Is that where Dr. Fosdick was?
I forget.
I'm wondering,
It's in,
that name
it's in
is
there, but in the book. But
familiar.
he was very well known, and I think a friend asked her to go hear him one day, or somehow she went to hear him, and it was love at first
Wow.
visit.
Yeah.
So she eventually came home because of her brother. When her brother Ray lost his first wife, she came home and went on to New Mexico to care for the little baby,
Right.
4-year-old
Right.
daughter, and so she left. She abandoned school,
Oh, okay.
and
and then
So-
he
and then
married
they
that
remarried,
woman.
and she simply
Yes.
came back
She
here.
came back here, and did
And
she
taught.
work?
She taught. At a certain point, they were living in this one area of New Mexico, and then they moved to Pueblo, and she taught a high school English there in Pueblo,
Mhm.
2 years or something. And then, of course, she came back and taught English here. She also taught English in Perry County. That was her first teaching job,
Mm.
but I forget exactly.
Where did she teach?
You
At the
did.
high school? Where did she teach?
High school.
Carlisle High School?
Oh my, Aunt Blanche, yes, she taught, both Grandma and Aunt Blanche taught here, didn't they?
At
As a
Carlisle.
matter of fact, when I was a senior, I had Aunt Blanche as my teacher.
Really? Did you know Winnie Carroll? Do you remember
Yes.
Winnie Carroll?
Yeah.
She would have taught with Aunt Blanche. I
Really?
think.
I think so.
She might have
I think
been
she
at-
was in the next room.
and
Aunt Blanche was on the end, at the head of the steps.
right. Winnie Carroll was my neighbor when we
Really?
moved to Carlisle, and I spent a lot of time with her. Yeah, yeah.
So
And then
she-
she married Clarence Plasterer. Did you know that?
Clarence who?
Plasterer.
I know that
Plaster.
Do
name.
you know that name?
I don't know why, but I know it.
Plasterer?
Plasterer, like
Yes.
plaster with an
Yeah.
extra ER.
I don't know that.
Did you
name.
don't know that name? Okay, but you probably know Carolyn Nolan, who taught Latin.
That sounds.
Miss Nolan.
Yeah, Aunt Blanche
Oh,
taught
yeah.
Latin.
Remember Miss Nolan? Yeah, I'm sure she lived on the other side of Winnie Carroll. Yeah, so
Her classroom was next to Aunt Blanche's.
okay,
Aunt Blanche's was on the left head of at the head of the steps.
okay.
Stairway, long stairway.
Did you learn that?
And Miss Nolan's
yeah.
room was next.
Yeah, I took Latin. I think I only took 2 years of Latin, but by the time my kids were in high school, we had to really fight to, make them take Latin, and I think they all took 1 year, but that was it.
I think
I don't
it's
even
a
know
good
if
idea.
Stephanie did. She might not have, but Michelle and
It
Michael
gives you
did.
that many more options
Well,
in study,
For English too.
and it's good for
if you want to.
background for English. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know what
She
time
must
it
be
is.
bored
I don't want to.
stiff.
I don't want to go on too long and tire y'all out because I can come back. What time? It's a little
Okay.
after 2.
5 after 2.
Is there anything special you want to share
Okay.
before we quit? But we can
think
do
so.
this again if you want.
Well, these things.
But see, these are the things that people, my kids don't know about.
Right.
The depression, they don't hear the stories that I heard as a kid.
Right.
you know.
Now, why is that?
Because they have television
And cell phones.
and internet. Because, you know, they get different stories now.
Yeah.
Yeah. If they want to hear music, they can just find it. They can listen to anything they want at any time.
Now you remember when Robin's Florist was out behind the house.
Oh, my.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that
I-
would have been right there. Yeah.
And their kids were the right ages to play with.
They were right at, I was over there a lot.
Were you?
Well, our lower yard in the back of the house ended up with our barn and an alley
Okay.
and the Robin's greenhouses
We're right there.
were right
I
there.
know right where that is, yeah.
Yeah.
And you used to help make corsages, didn't you?
Oh, wow, what fun. So you could go to the greenhouse and just
And
explore, or,
there were many corsages to make. Women wore corsages for all kinds of things.
really?
And girls.
Yeah,
Nowadays, you hardly ever see
right.
one
So
corsage, except maybe on
what-
Mother's Day.
Robin's Flowers didn't close that long ago, really. I
Not
mean,
really, but
They
also,
operated for probably 3 generations, or maybe 4.
oh, I don't know.
Well, my daughter plays with a Robin.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, neat.
Their
daughter-
Deanna Robbins,
Yeah,
who
the
would be
daughter.
their
I couldn't-
granddaughter
Rob knows her.
or
the
great granddaughter.
daughter or I think.
She teaches at Michelle's yoga studio.
Really?
Yeah.
Neat.
They went to high school together.
We're still.
My
I
daughter
couldn't hear what
my
you
daughter
said.
went to high school with Deanna Robbins, who
With
is
a
Deanna.
Robin?
She's Robin's Flowers. She would be maybe the 3rd or 4th generation from your
What's her
past.
first name?
She-
Robin?
Her name is Deanna.
So she would be a
What's the
granddaughter.
Robin's
She
girl's name? Susan?
no.
No.
Here are the ones we know.
Okay, who?
Susie,
Tootsie.
Tootsie,
Eleanor.
Eleanor, and then the fellow who had liked to fly planes, the brother.
Oh wow.
Oh,
So we,
And, they were Mr. and Mrs. Robbins' children.
okay.
But your mother, my grandmother, would say to you in the afternoon before dinner, Carolyn, dear, won't you run over to Robbins and get me some flowers for the table?
Really?
well, she'd say, probably get a few sweet peas.
Oh yeah.
And I would go in and say that that's what Mother had sent me to get. And she would say, just go back to the house, the sweet pea house, she would say, and pick what you want for her.
So they grew the flowers right there in the greenhouse.
Oh, yes. Oh, yes.
And you could just go in and pick the sweet peas.
And then I worked there oftentimes.
Did you?
When that was fun when they were having corsages for school dances.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think girls wear corsages
Not so
anymore
much.
at a high school
I know.
dance.
I know my girls did.
Did
I
they?
think
Did they?
so. I'm pretty
Oh,
sure
good.
they did.
I think
Yeah.
it's a nice custom.
Of course, that was, my girls are in their 40s, so that was a while ago.
I know Stephen and my brother Stephen and his wife Holly have 2 girls and a boy, and for prom, the girls wore wrist corsages, and Peter had to get one for his date.
Mm-hmm. And they had to get boutonnieres for the
Yeah.
boys.
It's a nice custom.
Yeah.
Well, thanks very much for sharing.